Have you heard about Anchor? Well, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Not only is it 100% free, but it has a variety of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or a computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to other sites such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many others for you. And Anchor even allows you to make money from your podcast without a required minimum listenership. So whether you've been in the podcasting game for a long time or you're completely new to it, Anchor is so user-friendly that it's basically your one-stop shop for making a podcast. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushola, and today's special guest is a friend of mine who I met pretty randomly in Ecuador. And this is not from when I was a missionary in Ecuador. It was actually when she was a missionary in Ecuador, like 6-7 years after I was. I was traveling with my school, University of Kentucky, and we were doing a medical brigade in Ecuador. And I decided to go to the Galapagos Islands to visit with one of the students that was on the brigade with me. And some of my former colleagues and friends, adoptive aunties and uncles in Ecuador when I was a missionary, were now teachers in the Galapagos Islands. And Jamie was working with them. And so I want you guys to hear her story and some of the things that she's done in her life and taking some first paso moments. So without further ado, here's my hermanita preciosa, Jamie Diaz. Hey girl, how are you doing?
Hey, Candy, I'm good.
Good,
Thanks
good.
for having me.
Absolutely. You're just such a fun, bubbly person. I think the world needs to experience all of that, especially during the quarantine. So,
Yes, for sure, for sure.
necesitamos tu personalidad. So, here we are.
Aquí estamos.
Aquí estamos. All right, so why don't you tell the gente a little bit about yourself?
So just basics about me. 26 years young, born and raised in Dayton, Centerville, Ohio. But I work and currently live in Loma Linda, California.
Awesome. And what for you has been an important first paso experience for you?
So the experience I selected was choosing to study abroad for a semester, my senior year in undergrad. I was 21 years old, and yeah, that's the experience I chose.
Okay, so flesh that out a little bit. Can you tell us kind of the backstory on how you ventured into that? Like what was your thought process? What was going on at the time that made you actually study abroad?
Yeah, so I really had, it was kind of an inner drive. I had one previous international experience. When I was in 6th or 7th grade, I went to Amsterdam on this, with this organization called People to People. And it was like a sports competition thing. It was pretty interesting, pretty good experience. I don't think the program is currently active anymore, but maybe it stemmed from that first experience. I went to Amsterdam alone with a chaperone in this group with people from there. So I think I'd always been curious to go international again. And then I had an advisor. She was my scholarship advisor, and so she had kind of encouraged me. I had got a scholarship. My school gave out a good amount of scholarship money for study abroad students, anywhere from I think they allocate 3,000 per student
Oh,
that
wow.
they can use towards any trip, study abroad, whether it's short term or long term.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just knew I just wanted the experience. I think it was just kind of a curiosity.
So walk me through the process. So you said you were, what year were you? You said?
Senior year, it was the first semester of my senior year.
Okay. So first semester of senior year, you were introduced to the idea of going abroad, or you had been introduced to this junior year over the summer?
I guess I had been introduced to it just kind of by my own curiosity, like prior. But I
Okay.
didn't actually go until my senior year. And most students study abroad their sophomore or junior year, but I was a little bit unique in that it was my senior year.
Okay. And so what did it feel like in that moment when you decided I know I want to do this and I'm going to do it, and you signed up and you know, realized that you got accepted to do the abroad? Like, what was there, like, conversations you had to have with your parents prior? Did you surprise them and was like, by the way, I'm going abroad? Like, what did that look like?
Honestly, I don't even remember what it was like with my parents. Just like I think they just had to take it. I
I'm
really
leaving.
did.
Receive it. Like,
I
that's
really
it.
did. Yeah, and the scholarship, and then I guess what came to my mind when you first asked me, like when I was thinking of primer paso, like of something in my life, what came to my mind was the moment I was actually like at the airport.
Oh, wow. What was
Um,
that? Explain that.
yeah, so my parents just dropped me off, and I had been to the airport before. It's not like, it's not like that was unfamiliar, but it almost felt like what I would imagine would be you're about to get off the airplane or like about to go skydive, and you're up on the plane, and you have all your gear on, but you just got to jump. And so I remember as I was in that moment, I was like, whoa, like have a one-way ticket. Like I am going to stay there for 4 months. It's in this foreign country, and it's not just like a little mini vacation. It's like I'm literally going to live in a foreign country by myself for 4 months. And so that's kind of what it felt like. You're just about to jump out of an airplane and go skydiving. That's the moment where I was like, okay, that was my first step towards something. Like you can't see it at the time, but you know it's going to be an experience like that's going to shape and form you, which kind of like leads me into the result, or the outcomes of what that experience what is the first step. So that experience was, I would say it was 100% positive experience. It set the groundwork for me to do solo travel to the Galapagos Islands. And that's where me and you met, to teach English and to live in the Galapagos Islands. I also have been to Jamaica, done solo travel. I went to Jamaica by myself just because I wanted to. And it's also increased my domestic work opportunities. Like every time, like I send a resume, and they're like really curious and really interested in what I did in the Galapagos and what I did in Quito for 4 months. And just for context, Galapagos was after Quito. Was it a year or two? It was about a year after I spent 4 months in Quito studying.
Okay, so wait, you chose to go to Quito as your study abroad location.
Yeah.
How did
yeah.
you choose Quito?
Yeah, so it was actually between, I could have gone to Spain, I could have gone to Costa Rica. My school had different agreements or contracts with other schools in various countries. So those options were Mexico, Costa Rica, Spain, Ecuador.
So you were trying to go Spanish-speaking countries, like that was.
Yeah, that was my intention because Spanish. That was another main reason why I wanted to study abroad in a Spanish-speaking country, is because Spanish is my second language, even though I'm biracial, and my dad's Puerto Rican and my mom's American. I didn't know Spanish growing up, and I always wanted to be able to communicate with my my abuela, my abuelo, my tío, like and everyone, whenever I would go to Puerto Rico as a child, and I could never communicate. So it bothered me so much. Like my motivation to learn a different language was very high. Unfortunately, because of assimilation and a lot of just I don't know how you say assimilation in the 80s, and it wasn't as celebrated back in the 80s and 90s, like knowing two languages as it is today. So that's why my dad never spoke to me in Spanish, and I just like I put all the effort. I remember crying like in my junior year in high school with my high school Spanish teacher, and I was like, I don't get this. Like I should know this already. This grammar stuff is ridiculous, and I just like I didn't want to. I didn't want to have it. Like I was just I was harta. I was so like just it was too much. So yeah, is that where we were at? I probably
yeah.
So conversation.
Yeah. So your reason for Quito was a language choice, or because of the language options and your background, your heritage, wanting to really pick up the language. So
it was just really random that I chose Ecuador. It was just super random, and it was a good thing because God had a plan for all of us, and I was able to meet you because I chose Ecuador like later on. Yeah.
So so did you choose Ecuador to go back as a missionary to like teach and stuff because of your experience in Quito?
Yeah, just because of the connections I had when going abroad there. I attended a church, and I met a pastor and his wife, and they had on one weekend on a retreat that I went on with some of the youth from that church, which was amazing. They like we all got pushed in the pool at the end of the weekend. It was crazy, and I twisted my ankle on like this bonfire, and like so I was like limping the whole time. And then they ended up like pushing me in the pool. It was like the last I was the last one to find, and they come and find me, and they carried me, and they threw me in the pool. It was like so many amazing moments like that you just like you'll never forget, and that just mark your experience, mark your life in such a positive way. And so I met them on this campaign, and they invited me, and I was like, well, I gotta go back and graduate, like I gotta finish school. And then you're 21, and a lot of times some people know that they want to continue with school or they want to go into the work field, but I did not know what I wanted to do at 21 with my life. So I chose to work and save money for a little bit, and then I took the pastor and his wife up on their offer, and they had transferred from Colegio Adventista de Ecuador in Santo Domingo. They had transferred from there to the Galapagos, and because I transferred, I was then sent to the Galapagos, and I was like, I love to live on the Galapagos Islands for a year.
And that Colegio Adventista de Ecuador is where I was a missionary in 2011.
Right.
And so like all those people went to a bunch of people, some of my former students who are now pastors, and some of my mentors that helped me, they got called to work in the Galapagos around the same time that you were there. So yeah. So can you actually talk a little bit about like the prep to leave? Because I think that's something that it's people think, I just sign up and then they give me money and then I get on a plane. Like, but I feel like there's things that you have to do to prepare yourself. Like actually, go talk to somebody, talk about, especially if you're, you were, that would have been your senior year. So you came back to finish your senior year, right? Like, so like, what do I need to do when I come back? Or, does this affect financial aid? Or does this like, I don't know, like, is there certain steps that someone would need to take to prepare to go, and things that they would need to think about in returning if they have to come back to finish a program like a
right. So in my situation, the public school or the public university study abroad office They always have resources, and we had meetings, I think a series of like 2 meetings or something like that, where they go over like all the other students that were going to study abroad in a different country. We all met together, and then we met with the study abroad director of the of the international office, and he like goes over the basics and like what to expect and money and all that preparation. So the school has a lot of resources that are always there. You just have to look into them, and then and the meetings were required because you're leaving the country for 4 months. So and a lot of people were going to like China and like other like foreign countries where it's just like very different. They go over currency and all that stuff.
Culture,
and culture, definitely, yeah, all that stuff. And then there's not really a lot of and then they're there for support when you get back. But there's not really reverse culture shock is totally a thing.
Yes, it is.
Some students know about, others maybe not, but you just like, because we live in such abundance and first world problems and everything here, and then when you go to other countries, you're like, you see that how they live and you compare it and you're like, whoa, I have so much, and it's a lot. So I recommend connecting with other friends, maybe who have had a similar experience, so that the reverse culture shock isn't so much. That can be very difficult if you're just dealing with that on your own, and you don't know anyone else who has had a similar experience. So it's just like your family isn't going to understand, your friends aren't going to understand. So that's the thing. And then financial aid, for me, it was different because I had a scholarship, so my tuition was funded already. So I just that tuition funding covered my semester abroad. I'm not sure how. I'm pretty sure it would just be like, because you pay your home institution, you're just taking those classes at a different institution in a different country, and then those got transferred over. You just do an equivalency. You just check with your professors in your home institution if this class that you're going to take qualifies, and you just make sure of that before you go. So it's pretty cool. I got to get credit. I got to take an international business class in Ecuador. So in that international business class, like, I get an Ecuadorian perspective, and then my teacher, I think she was Ecuadorian, but she had like European influence. Like, she was very like blonde hair, like light skin, but she had just amazing experience, and so we got to learn so much in that class and get it all in a different language and a different perspective. And taking an international business class here in the United States just would have had a very like Americanized perspective on the international business culture. And I actually went on to work in international business for 1.5 years after the Galapagos, where I got to go to Mexico City and travel international. I worked for a multinational company called ACO Brands, and we make school supplies. So like all the journals and notebooks and 5-star products that you see in Walmart and Target. I worked to do orders for those for international distributors and papelerias that are in other countries, and it was really neat. So that was another really cool thing, that because they saw my resume and they saw the study abroad experience, and that definitely gave me that amazing salary, my first salary job opportunity after graduating college.
So there's a lot of really cool networking experiences, and it kind of it makes your resume or your CV stand out a little bit after you graduate, because you've had these experiences that other people in your school or your program have not had. So I would think that it kind of gives you a leg up when it does, you're going to look for jobs and things like that. So that's very important for students to know. I think the financial piece tends to worry people, or, not sure how it's going to correlate with their program back home, or the timing, like, oh, I'm going to be delayed. But it's...
I was not delayed. No, if you prep well in advance, ask the right questions, do the right research. Like, there is work you're going to have to do on your own, but there's a lot of resources for that. So that's why you have a study abroad advisor, and they help you through that. It's just about taking advantage of the resources that are available to you.
Yeah. So if you had to share a lesson for people to take away from that experience for you, what would you tell people who may be thinking about doing something abroad in the middle of their program?
Yeah, well, there's so many good travel quotes that I love, but one of them that sticks out to me is it says, once in a while it really hits people that they don't have to experience the world in a way they have been told to. And that's by Alan Kitely. And I just love that because I learned so much about myself. It increased my confidence, my tolerance to be uncomfortable, and just to really enjoy the adventure of life. I just think, when I am 80 and I look back on my life and I am I don't want to have regret, not having done something. So I just think adventure is what really defines a life. And there's just so many lessons that I took from it, but those being most of them, I wouldn't have done anything differently. There's so much to be said about not having plans and just being flexible, going with the flow and whatever comes at you. When you travel, perfectionism just goes out the window. You can have a whole itinerary or schedule of what you want to do, but it never gets done.
Especially in Ecuador. Ya sabemos Ecuador. Uf.
Yeah.
Oh, Ecuador, como amamos Ecuador, pero
yeah.
They had a whole other time schedule.
I know. Oh, the stories you have. I can't. But yeah, definitely preparation is a part of it. But I would say, in comparison to the overall experience, I would say jumping, that aspect of jumping out of a plane, being at the airport when you're, by yourself and you're what is about to happen? I have no idea. And you're experiencing a new country and a new place for the first time in your life, and everything's new to you. Even the mundane, what's mundane to the locals around them is completely new to you, and it's beautiful. Preparation, I would say, is 10 to 20%, and then just jumping is the rest. You just gotta just go.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I never did a study abroad experience. My missionary year was my abroad experience, but it's very similar in the prep stage. All the questions you have to figure out from the missionary standpoint, we have to fundraise. We don't get scholarships to be missionaries. We have to fundraise to be missionaries. And, you still have your classes. There's usually an office. For my school, we had a missionary office. So they had classes that we had to take. We had to read books on being missionaries. We had connect groups that we met up with to really talk about how we're preparing, what we're choosing to pack depending on where we are going. They had a list of contacts from the missionary office for us to take with us. So if we needed to call anyone or if we needed to email someone, that we had those resources ahead of time. They had to mentally prepare us for whether or not we may have consistent internet, which for some students was what? We can't have Wi-Fi 24/7. Some places didn't have that. I was in one of those places. And so, mentally preparing people for those things. And I was fortunate enough to go to Ecuador with someone that spoke Spanish, but in general, going with someone. I didn't go by myself. I wanted to, but my parents were absolutely not. you need to bring a friend. So I had to, buddy up with a friend whose parents told her the same thing. And we went to Ecuador together. And so it was nice having someone with me, but most of our missionary class went by themselves. So it was a lot of reaching out on Facebook because, that time Facebook was hip hop happening. Reaching out to people on Facebook about what you're going through, the types of experiences you're experiencing. Because like you said, whether it's an abroad program or a missionary program or whatever, the experiences that you're going through, really only people who have gone through that can relate. You can try to explain it to other people, but it's a little bit flat. I don't know. I don't know how to explain.
That's an excellent word.
Yeah, like it's really challenging to try to flesh it out for someone, for them to actually be interested in what you're sharing with them, unless they're actually interested in maybe doing it themselves or living vicariously through you, because there are those people as well. And the reverse culture shock, it was way more shocking returning for me than it was going. And I think because I'm a first generation American kid, so the cultural aspect to me was very similar to my mom's culture when I went to Ecuador. So I was like, oh, this is bomb. Like, yeah, let's do this. Like, give me all the plátano all day long. Like, I'll eat these things, And I wanted to learn all the songs, and I wanted to do all the dances, and I want to learn, like, literally everything that they were doing. I was just like, just teach me, quiero aprender. And, it was just so wonderful. And Spanish was a driving force for me, too. Because Spanish is very heavy in my family. We have a lot of Puerto Ricans in my family. I have Venezuelans in my family. So that was something that I grew up hearing around, but I just never picked it up fully. And I was like, I just need to go somewhere where they only speak it and they can't speak to me in English. So I really have to lean into the language. But the coming back part, I wish more study abroad and missionary programs in school talked about that piece, because they were just kind of like, yeah, when you come back, it's going to be a little challenging. Okay.
Right.
But like, what does that mean? I don't understand. And it's very different from different people. I will say that most, at least from my perspective, from what I see, you can feel free to correct me, but students who have come back from a study abroad program tend to transition back easier than students who are returning from being missionaries.
I agree.
Okay, and maybe it's because they're still in a class setting. It's like I'm in school here and then I just do school there with really cool experiences, versus missionary students are going and they're dedicating their entire life to pour into a community and become part of their culture and live like they do, to then it transforms how you even think and process life and see how the world works. So then when you come back, you're like, wait a second, hold up, America's got some issues,
right?
Like serious issues.
That's it.
And it can feel. And I'm not saying people who study abroad don't go through this experience. I just think it's probably less likely. So I wouldn't necessarily say that being afraid to come back and feeling off, I wouldn't have that shy away from anyone who's thinking about being, going abroad to study something academically. But I think it's something to prepare yourself for just in case, regardless, because everyone adjusts very differently. Even some missionaries, of course, like some missionaries went to like Australia or Palau and they were basically surfing most of the time, and they came back, they're like, it was awesome. It was like being on the beach for 9 months. And we're like, we hate you, but whatever. That is not my life. I lived in a rusty, crusty, dusty room. Okay.
My work was never done.
Right? Like, I was always behind. They were always adding things to my life. And they're just like, the beach was great. The waves were awesome. So awful. So, people have different experiences even in their study abroad programs, depending on where you go. Being in China and their study abroad program is going to be different than being in Spain or in Argentina or in Ecuador or in Mexico or in France. Like there's still a cultural piece that you have to soak in. And when you come back, you will be different. You should be different. You should expect to want to be different when you come back and bring things that you've learned. But you may not adjust back as easily as you would like, depending. So, things like that to consider, process, really, like you said, talk to people who have done a study abroad, or if you're trying to be a student missionary, whatever. Talk to those people. Don't just talk to the people in the office, because they may or may not have actually done it themselves. They may just be passionate about helping students who want to do this. So they may not have the personal experience to talk to you about it. And it's much easier to talk to someone who's done it recently than it is for someone who's like, in 1963 when I was
I definitely, like, the study abroad office connected me with two former students who had gone to the same school in the same country that I went to, so I got to meet up with them for lunch. Definitely.
And if you get to connect if you get to connect with students like that even before, they can like give you the heads up. They'll be like, okay, so like, don't ever walk down this street or you need to go to this restaurant because it's and then you need to, this teacher is so good at so you can get resources from students who have gone before. Ask the study abroad group, office, who I need as many students to talk to as possible. Like, I need to know, will they meet up with me? And they usually have students who want to do that, who want to be that resource for other people, especially if they were really passionate about the program they did. So really utilize those students beforehand. They'll tell you what to pack. They'll be like, I wish I packed that, and then I didn't. And then I was stuck there for 4 to 9 months, and I was struggling. They'll tell you what snacks to bring. Like, I missed Rice Krispie treats so badly. They had no Krispie treats in this whole country, and I was just crying. Like, I mean, there's just things. There's just things. Missionary students, it's the same thing. They're like, they don't have no Reese's cups. Like, you're just like... the things that you don't think about until you're there and you're stuck, right?
That's true.
So, like, there's so many things that you can look forward to in trying to make this decision, and whether or not it's going to be beneficial for what you want to do in life. It can just be such an eye-opening experience. It's not something that I think you should shy away from, even if you're worried from the financial piece. The schools will work with you if you really want to do it. Like, there are resources to get you the money you need, and some students still end up doing some fundraising to go abroad, which I'd seen in undergrad too. And so don't be ashamed of that, like trying to figure out the financial piece. If it's really something that you desire to do, run after it. I mean, do everything that you can, ask as many questions as you have, and take that opportunity to do something that you may or may not have the opportunity to do ever again. And it'll just, shape your world a little bit differently, broaden your horizon. It's cool. It's cool to go abroad, especially when your parents back you up on it. That's also very comforting to know that your parents want you to have those types of experiences as well. Try to stay connected with friends that are not abroad, while they're back home, as long as the internet's good enough to do so. So that way they don't feel like you've up and left and they're not going to hear from you for a long time. Those home connections can be very helpful depending on what you do. I don't know. As a student missionary, sometimes it makes you want to come back home early. So you kind of have to find balance. But I'm sure there's probably students who study abroad that may have those same issues sometimes too, depending on if they go and it's just not the thing that they thought it was going to be for them. And so, find that balance, but still try to stay connected and make as many new friends as possible. Like, from all over the world. Like, students are coming from everywhere, and it's just so cool to be like, man, I met this kid in my program from like Argentina, Singapore. Yeah, like they're from Austria, and it's like, what? Like, when would I meet someone from Austria?
Exactly.
So it's cool. It's really cool, and I admire your bravery to do that. It's a tough decision at a young age to decide whether or not that's for you, but the communication, thinking about it, doing your research, I think is really good prep for opportunities like that. Yeah. It's a
life. Just jump. You just gotta jump sometimes too.
Yeah. Get those opportunities while they're there. So
100%. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that experience and hopefully encouraging someone who's sitting there thinking about whether or not I should do an abroad program and how to decide what I want to do and if it's for me and who all is it going to affect and what can I take away from this experience?
It's best to do when you're studying. Like when you're a student, the opportunities to travel are endless. Because once you get out, you get to the 9 to 5, you get to the whole comfortable, the routine. It's so much.
You get married, to have kids,
kids. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There it goes. So
say goodbye.
Do it while you're young and single.
Yeah.
Yes, do it.
Exactly.
So, if people have questions for you about more details on what you do,
I love sharing my experience. You can hit me up on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I used to be on Instagram, but then I had gotten too addictive for me, so I don't have Instagram, but I do have Facebook. Jamie Lee Diaz is my name.
Yes.
You can feel free to add me. Just in general, I'm friendly, always looking for new friends, and I love to talk about my experience. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's a really good resource to have. She could probably connect you with people that she probably knows from random places too, depending on what you're looking into. That's what happens when you study abroad and you become a missionary somewhere.
I got friends in Germany, Singapore.
Boom. And would that have happened in Dayton, Ohio? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mm-mm. So that's the cool part. So please hit her up on Facebook. I know some of you guys are like, what's Facebook? I know. We're so old. Leave us alone. Just FACEBOK.
It's so cool.
It's still awesome.
Yeah.
You're just living your own other lives.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for listening today, and hopefully you learned a little bit more about how the study abroad programs work and how they operate, what you can do to look into a study abroad program at your university or your college, and really take those opportunities. If there are any other topics that you're interested in hearing, please hit me up on Twitter at First Paso. And if you've had any study abroad experiences that you would like to share with me that I can read in a future podcast, please let me know. If there's advice and tips that you have about traveling, about choosing a country, how to connect with certain people while you're abroad, how to stay connected back home while you're gone, and how to maybe assimilate when you get back, please share those experiences. It's so nice to hear how other people have done something and make it reality for other people who are maybe trying to make those same decisions for themselves. So that's all we're here to do. We're here to help each other get to the next step in our lives and flesh out our stories here in life. So I hope you guys get some really cool opportunities in the future to go abroad if you've not gone before. And if you want to take a friend with you, however you want to do it, I just hope you take those opportunities and jump. Just make that jump to seize the day and learn from those experiences that you may not have in your backyard. So the world is your oyster. Is that what they say? I don't know my phrase as well.
Or carpe diem.
Yes,
diem.
Carpe
seize the day.
Seize the day. Yes, do it. So until next time, guys, we will talk soon. And Jamie, we will also talk soon, girl, as we always do. So I'll see you later, chica.
All right, later. Bye.
Bye.